on her faithful ride with me. Red and gold blooded to the day I die. Reppin' on her gang and it's all I bleed. Racking up dubs in my Levi jeans. And we run over the league with our whole team. Be that number one seed cause we ballin'. Putting in that work early in the morning. Super Bowl team and now these haters salty. Rockin' Zenny shades to the championship shift. That Nick Bosa drop him hard like a hit stick. The Jimmy Ward intercept him with a pick six. Like Debo, we gon' knock him like a brick. The Trey Lance play action to a drop back. When the blitz coming quick, the old line gon' block that.
All right. Videos courtesy of NFL.com. Welcome to IE Sports Radio. I'm Niners Jess, along with Ty Alston, Maddie B, and your girl Bex. How's everyone doing?
Doing good.
Hump day already.
And I can't forget about our special guest. We have Ted of TED Talks Ball. Ted, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jess. It's a pleasure to be here. Appreciate it.
Yeah, glad to have you. We're going to have some fun today. Well, I really thought I was going to come on here tonight real happy that everything went well with Brock's surgery. And here we are. It's postponed till March.
Pump your brakes.
Yep, exactly. And to pull up a tweet from Tom Pelissero that he visited with the doctor who recommended postponing the surgery because of ongoing inflammation in Purdy's elbow. They'll reconvene in early March. All signs continue to point to a UCL repair that would have Purdy ready for the season. Yeah. So
how specific is early March? March 1st? March 2nd?
Yeah, it was very vague
3rd,
with that.
Like March 10th? What is defined as early March? That's what I'm interested in.
You know, the key component in that sentence to me was ready for the season. I don't care if it's March 1st or March 15th. If he's ready for the season, have at it. Take your time.
But that's not the season opener, though, is it?
Exactly.
They weren't specific. It did not say, but my understanding is, yes, that he would be ready to go.
Well, given the timeline that they're supposed to, you get 3 months, you start throwing, and then 6 months, you should be fine. That kind of puts us into what, September already?
September.
Yeah.
Sometime in September.
So, we'll see. Just want to say hello to everybody in the chat. Got Bryant, Rob D. What's going on? Niner Sickness. What's up, Beto?
Exactly. He's not ready for OTAs. Didn't we just sit through this last year where Jimmy Garoppolo couldn't be in training camp, OTAs, whatever? He was working out on the side. Now, he's not going to be doing that in this case because they're not trying to protect him for trade value. But, you still want him to get those reps that he needs to get, right? So it's not an optimal situation. So hopefully there's no anything. And then the other thing that you worry about, which seems to happen in every major surgery this team has, is the cleanup procedure that happens in late May, early June to deal with hardware that's creating some sort of irritation or some sort of variant of that sort of thing, right? They're taking stitches out. Normally they'd come out, but in this case we have to go in and do it because, I'm not going to feel comfortable until they're like, yep, this is all set and he's ready to come back, right? I'm having flashbacks to Joe Montana and it's just an elbow strain. He'll be back in a couple of weeks. And then he played one more game against the Lions, and that was it. So that's what that's the first thing you go back to, because that was the very first time they were like, oops, yeah, we just think it's a tiny thing. It's fine. He's going to miss a preseason game. No big deal. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's how that worked.
Man up, get out there and throw the ball.
Right, yeah.
Rub some dirt on it.
Exactly. Yeah.
See, that was my original thought when this actually happened, because I remember texting you guys, and then I was like, oh man, afterwards I felt kind of bad because, it, obviously you knew what happened, but yeah, that was my first thought. And clearly Maddie's not a fan of the second procedure.
He likes to go back to that a lot, doesn't he?
would like the one procedure, one and done, right? Like that's it. Like
One cut.
I want
that's it.
that. I want it. It was successful and it worked fine, right? There's no issues, and he's on track to do whatever, and he should be okay. But I'm telling you, like every one of these surgeries, almost all these major ones, if you go back in history, when Brady tore his ACL, he had an infection. When Hayward broke his ankle, they had to go in and remove screws or whatever
That's it,
when
getting
he
the
did his thing. They had to do another thing with Alex Smith, kind of that same sort of, I got to do. Like there's just the secondary one, and they never ever talk about that at the beginning. They're like, it's 4 to 6 months, he'll be fine. Yeah, if everything works perfectly.
Hold
Shaking
on,
the
man.
candlestick dirt.
I think we
Check out that
definitely have to
Wizard-
order our
Wizard cross
sage
talk.
for sure.
Right. Debbie Downer over there is worrying me.
I'm trying to be realistic because you're going to start seeing other quarterbacks get brought in here, right? Whether it's youngins, whether it's oldens that aren't going to be
That aren't youngins.
like grade A prime, but at the same time, like could take snaps if something happened. Like there's so much going on, and you've got teams right now that are trying to cut down to the cap. Like this is wild and wacky season because you never know what's going to happen in the afternoon. Look, we had already planned yesterday. We went to bed on the East Coast last night. Brock Purdy's going to have a surgery tomorrow.
Yeah,
Tomorrow's Brock's
I
surgery
tweeted,
day.
I'm like, good luck, you know?
Yeah, like it was like 10:30 like when we did that. Like it wasn't like we were, in bed after the early bird at 6:15. Like it was, we were ready and we were up late and that was it. Then you wake up in the morning, it's like, just kidding. Like what?
Psych. Take backseat.
So Beto says that Croft better be paying for all the medical bills of Brock Purdy. I agree.
I'm throwing a red flag on that one because Brock Purdy did not execute. Had he thrown the ball when he should have, his arm wouldn't have got hit that way.
You sound like
Just
Kyle
facts.
Shanahan, Ty. Or
It's
if he had
facts.
stepped up in the pocket, right? That was the other thing Kyle
It's
said.
facts. You got a guy breaking open. He's got to anticipate that and let it fly. What do we all criticize quarterbacks for? Holding on to the ball too long, not letting it go. He didn't let it go.
He did the pat.
That's right.
I call it.
He did the
I
old
always
pat.
call it the Drew Bledsoe pat, right? He got the ball. No, you should have released it there. You're not. What are you waiting on? What are we?
Which is exactly why Brock missing OTAs and camp and a lot of preseason this year is such a bad thing, because he would have this synergy with our weapons if he was working with them all off season, and now he's going to be sort of stuck where he was at the NFC Championship game.
And that's the scary part to me. We already saw an offseason last year. Reminder, fun fact. I don't know if everybody remembers, but Trey Lance even admitted it in interviews. He had arm fatigue, right? So he's not going to be throwing all those passes as much as we would love him to get all those reps. Who's getting those reps? Are these guys going to have quality reps, right? Like,
Well,
I can't believe you
There's
brought
so
up
much up in
15.
the air.
wait
right
a
now,
sec.
man.
Wait a sec. The arm fatigue was from throwing for 20 straight months.
Tell us, Ted.
It was not just one off season that caused the arm fatigue. And no matter what the quarterback situation is, no one's going to take more than half the reps. I mean, the starter is always going to have at the most the reps with the first team. And, then there's always going to be someone else who's going to do the reps with the second and third team players. So I don't think we have to worry about Trey Lance getting arm fatigue this offseason.
All right, Ty, there you go.
Every time I throw the ball. Are you serious? Bruh, I'll come on your show. We'll pull up the film. I can show you 2 plays. One where he anticipated the throw, threw it out on time. His back foot hit. He threw it out on time. No problem. And I can go back to that play and show you how he held onto the ball. Had he thrown it when he was supposed to, his arm would have followed through. He would have got pushed in the back. 2-hand touch style. That's it. Sometimes you got to hold these players accountable. We do it for every other position except
not
for the
the
quarterback,
coach.
it seems.
We're
Kyle
not
dialed
firing
up
the
a perfect play.
We're not firing the
no.
coach this week? Oh, I didn't.
We haven't gotten there yet.
All right. Okay. That's later in the show, right?
That's
That's
later
a
in the
2-minute
show,
drill, I
yeah.
guess. Unbelievable.
What was that,
Yeah.
Maddie? I didn't hear you.
I was going to say, this isn't Fire the Coach week. I thought it was Fire
Oh.
the Coach week.
It
Yeah,
it
sorry.
actually it always is. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's later in the show.
There'll be some reason.
Oh man, I might be outnumbered here. I'm a Shanna fan, but that doesn't mean we can't be critical of things. Nobody's perfect, and
We're
so
being sarcastic, Ted. We're all Team Shammy.
yeah, so we can still be
Oh,
critical.
I
of
hope
him.
you realize we're being
we
heavily
are.
sarcastic. It's
Yeah, no, I
terrible.
know you
Yeah.
guys are. No, you guys are
Yeah.
great. That's why
We're
I
not
love your
firing him
show.
here. We're not firing him any week because
Nope.
I always.
I mean,
ask the
hell, I
question,
got the
who you
man
replacing
standing
him
right
with? And
behind me.
Nobody's come up with anybody better yet. Like
No, I did have somebody
Yeah,
ask me today
exactly.
if they thought we should get
Typically,
an
she'd be wearing
offensive
them on a shirt.
coordinator.
What's that?
Matt
Really?
was saying that he.
Matt said something about your shirt. I think he said.
Oh yeah, no,
I
he's on my shirt. I have Trust the Shanna plan on my shirt.
Oh.
There you go. Yeah, and we can love Kyle, and we can also say things like he could be a little less conservative, punting on 4th and 2 from the opponent's 40-yard line, or whatever the case may be. Maybe don't run Trey so much up the middle. There's things that he can still improve on,
You
even
can't
though
upset Jerry Rice either.
we like him as a coach. Right? Yeah, absolutely.
It's okay to burn a timeout in the first half, not in the second half, if you're thinking about gambling on a challenge, right?
There you go. Oh, you mean like on a questionable catch?
On a questionable call in the first half, if it's a 50-50 thing, like maybe it's okay to take that time to do it because
Do we
clearly
but
we
wait,
couldn't trust the Fox crew to do it.
But wait, do we fire Kyle or the guy in the booth whose one job is to watch replays and call down and say challenge this?
See, I would like
guy
to
in the
do
booth.
that, but the problem, I would want to fire the guy in the booth too, but I don't think it was our guy in the booth who did it. I think it was Fox's guy in the booth.
Well,
who
we
League's
all
guy
know
in the
who the
booth.
culprit was.
Yeah. There was I don't think there was any view for us to get until 2.5 minutes later.
Right.
No, it wasn't until after the
And they
touchdown.
even said
Well
New York
after
had
the
it.
fact.
New York had all the views, but no one in New York even called the refs to review it.
Yeah, I was even sitting and I just looking at the game, like, what game am I watching?
Yeah. We were getting crucified by all the Philly fans too. It was terrible.
Ugh. Hey Rob, I don't know if you noticed that now I have both Kyle and George Kittle behind me. I know he made a comment last week about my Kyle Shanahan. Let's say. So Ted, I wanted to ask you, I know you're from California, but how did you become a 49ers fan?
It's been a long time since then. It was 1976, and
Ooh, I wasn't even a thought. Go ahead.
yeah, and so yeah, I'm an old fart for sure. So it's interesting because my dad raised me to be a Niners fan because we lived here in the Bay Area, but he's from Dallas, and so when I started being a Niners fan, they were terrible. 76, 77, 78, 79, 80. They never made the playoffs any of those years. And so when the playoffs would happen, we would watch the Cowboys because that's where my dad grew up and he still had an affinity to them. And so I rooted for the Cowboys to beat the Denver Broncos in that Super Bowl. I rooted for them when they lost to the Steelers in that Super Bowl. So when the catch happened, I mean, I was happy that the Niners got it and that they won, but I would have been a lot happier if it was another team besides the Cowboys. I didn't hate the Cowboys yet, pretty far from it. They were sort of like my playoff team, if you will. It's a lot of the same way as being an early Warriors fan, because I wasn't a Warriors fan for Rick Barry when they won in 76. And so when the Warriors were out of the playoffs every year, I would pick a different team to root for. So it was the Lakers, it was the Bulls. So I've rooted for a lot of teams that weren't Bay Area teams in the playoffs because the Bay Area teams weren't in the playoffs for a lot of years, oddly enough. So I did, of course, learn to hate the Cowboys in the 90s with Emmitt Smith and Troy Aikman, and Michael Irvin. Losing all those NFC Championship games to them was terrible. And they're still one of my most hated teams. But the Seahawks have taken over now as my most hated team more recently.
Who's your favorite player to start off with back in that era?
I mean, it was like Jim Plunkett was the quarterback back then. So oddly enough, and it was really frustrating that he couldn't do much for the Niners, and then he goes to the Raiders, and they win a Super Bowl with them.
Yeah.
That was very frustrating. And then 1 year later, we won it with Montana. Luckily, it didn't take that long. But during that 1 year, there was a lot of like, what's wrong with the air on this side of the bay where Jim Plunkett was terrible for us, and he goes to the Raiders and they win a Super Bowl. Like that was definitely pretty frustrating.
Yeah, Dan Pastorini gets hurt, and surprise, this Jim Plunkett guy comes in, and I guess everything's all right. And then they go to beat a heavily favored Eagles team in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, Jaworski, right? Wasn't it?
Yeah,
Jaworski?
that was Madden though coaching too, wasn't he? The coach.
Yeah, Madden was
No,
the coach.
Tom Flores was the coach.
Oh, you're right. Madden
Was
was
it
the
Flores?
coach
Right.
before.
Yeah.
You're right.
It was
Previous.
that
Madden
era,
only
though.
won one. Yeah,
That's right. That's right. Good point. It
Flores
was
won two because they beat Washington a couple years later.
when they were the LA Raiders.
Right. They won in Oakland and they won in LA.
Yeah.
They've not won in Vegas, and I don't see that happening anytime soon either.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, I always wondered that because sometimes when I tune in to your show, you're always giving Dallas love, especially not like, like you don't really have anything bad to say about them. So I always wonder like, oh, I wonder what it is with Dallas. So I'm glad,
Well,
I asked you.
part of that is like I had a lot of Dallas content creators on. I think I had 4 on the week we played them in the divisional round. And so I was being nice to them because they came on my show. So I didn't want to be like, oh, here you are, and let me talk a bunch of trash about your team.
You're a better person than me.
I'm mean on the timeline, with my receipts and everything. But in my shows and my articles, I try to be a lot more balanced and fair. But especially when I invite somebody to come on my show as like a Cowboys expert, then I do everything I can to kind of, I don't know, look at it from their perspective, if you will. Like say, oh, well, if Tony Pollard just hadn't gotten hurt, it could have been a totally different game. When I really am thinking, yeah, you would have lost by less, but you still would have lost, right? So that's maybe a little bit of my, I don't know, I guess a little bit of being phony, if you will. It's not
You're just
or
very
nice
diplomatic,
or polite.
that's all.
Yeah, I mean, polite is very similar word to politics, to politicians.
Respectful.
To me, they're just liars. Come on. So when you're being polite, you're just lying. You're not being your true self. And
You're just being that Southern nice.
yeah, no, I definitely do say that.
Bless your heart.
We all know what that one means.
Yeah.
I just watched. There was some show. It's called Vengeance, I guess. It was about some podcaster from New York who went to avenge a death of a girl.
I
he
want to see
married.
that. Yeah.
It's actually quite good. It's the guy from The Office,
Right.
and a few other folks. But Ashton Kutcher is one of the characters in the movie. Vengeance.
Vengeance? I got it right.
Yeah.
I'm always looking for something to watch.
And so when they say bless your heart, it really means F you, right? I mean, it's really a nice way of saying that. And I do like to say that I'm sort of like one of the more Southern gentlemen you'll meet who was born and raised in California. Like my first fight I got into was a guy hit a girl. I'm like, hey, you don't hit girls. And then he hit me. And so it was on. Anyway.
It's funny you mentioned that. The only time I ever got an in-school suspension is because somebody knocked my Golden State Warriors starter hat off in junior high. And I hit a guy in the face, and he dropped his backpack on a girl's head. She fell backwards, and those little metal poles in between doors? She whacked her head off of it and got knocked over. So
oh boy,
I got in trouble because it was like the thing. But
chain reaction.
Leave my Warriors starter hat alone, man. Like leave it be.
Yeah, no, I got into a few fights growing up, not too many. I tried to stay clear. Got a fat lip once or twice, black eye.
Yeah, after that, it was like, what's the point? It's nothing good's going to happen out of it. Like, Like it's an
No doubt
early
about it.
lesson in the butterfly effect.
Yeah, no, I mean, the only one I won that I can remember, I ended up in the principal's office and got suspended from school for it. So yeah, that's something bad almost always came from it, seemed like. And then as you get older, you realize, gosh, you could lose your life, you could lose your intellect, you could lose, if you get sued, you could lose a lot of money. There's a lot to lose from fighting, no doubt about it. Not much to be gained.
Yeah, I was stabbed with a pencil, and in return, I kicked him in between the legs. Yeah.
My wife had
I
one.
could
no
see.
reason.
I could. Yeah, I could see you
Mechanical
just
pencil
saying,
too,
"Oh,
which
you're
is
gonna
even
stab
more
me? All right,
painful.
I'm gonna whack you."
That's exactly what happened. I think it was like first or second grade. Yeah.
Quid pro low blow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a boy in the
100%.
5th grade started a fight at the school dance because he had a crush on me. And he walked up and he pushed me and I fell and I got up and I whopped him right in the eye. And then he started throwing hands. So we start like literally throwing hands in the middle of the gym. They stopped the music, turned on the lights. I was so embarrassed that I went home. I lived right down the street from the school. I was like, I'm out of here. This is awful. Then he helped me put my chain on my bicycle after that a couple days later. I was like, oh my God,
that was nice.
Because he was scared.
Yeah.
He's like, I better help her
He
now.
was afraid you're gonna take it off and put it on your hand. Is what he
Exactly.
thought.
Well, then I went through this phase at school where everybody didn't want to fight me because I would kind of turn into a wild man. They called me Manimal. And so I tried to call this guy out and he wouldn't go fight. And one of the buddies in my friend group was like, if you call him out in front of the leader of the group, he'll have no choice but to go with you. And so we did, and we went and fought, and it was the lamest fight ever because he knew martial arts, and so I couldn't get anything in on him. And then finally I realized I could like jump up high and come down, and almost like with my arm extended like a lance. And anyway, it was quite the scene. And he ended up with a broken tooth, unfortunately, which is terrible. So
This is what we have 10 days into the off season. This is what we've got.
Ted's
Right?
walking around doing wrestling moves to people.
Exactly.
Manimal.
doing
Free
MMA
agency doesn't
before
start till
MMA.
March 15th. Like Brock Purdy's arm is still in a sling. This is where we're at, right?
This sure did take a turn, Rob.
Ooh. All right, so you were there in '76. You were there for the whole thing, right?
Yes,
You were there for the OJ trade. Were people behind the OJ trade when it happened?
That I don't know. That I didn't follow
No?
that closely then. Yeah, I
All
mean,
right.
I'll be honest.
When
like,
did you start? When did you start
Yeah,
following?
would you really
it? Like,
get into it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think once we drafted Montana, once we got Walsh, there was like a new optimism around the team. I mean, I think people at first when we drafted Montana, they're like, "Why did we draft Montana? We already have DeBerg, and he's fine. We can win with DeBerg." Or you're not. We weren't really winning, but he was putting up numbers, and so
He wasn't
I think,
the problem.
yeah, right. It was defense, and then obviously when we drafted Ronnie Lott and Eric Wright and Carlton Williamson, that was a pretty epic draft, pretty much all time for defense. And we traded for Fred Dean, I believe, and it was sort of like, ooh, this could be coming together. It's kind of like the feeling I got in 2019 when Jimmy G was coming back from his ACL. We signed Quan Alexander, we drafted Bosa, and we traded for D Ford, and we had Jimmy Ward, who was going to play free safety. It just seemed like a lot of things were coming together where it could be great. And obviously, both of those were times where I started to pay more attention to the team. I'm not going to lie, I didn't pay as much attention during the Chip Kelly, Jim Tomsula years as I did during Harbaugh. It's I call me a front runner if you want, but I definitely pay more attention when the team's doing well, or even when they're just coming up. Even if they don't have to be great, but just where you start to see they're on the climb. To me, that's the funnest part about being a sports fan, is when you see that your team could be good or great, and other people haven't figured it out yet. You can start talking trash, and get laying those receipts, getting them ready. That's definitely a fun time for me, for sure.
Ted, Harbaugh or Shanahan?
I'm a Team Shanahan guy. I mean, I think Harbaugh's a great coach, but he had so much more to work with when he got here. There were obviously some key additions that were made, like Alden Smith, thank you, and getting Navarro Bowman to actually be a starter. I think that was important, as well as would we pick up a corner and at least one of the safeties, and our fullback.
The drafting of Dante Johnson. Give him some
The
love.
redhead fullback, Bruce.
49ers legend.
Bruce Miller.
Yeah, no, Bruce Miller. Thank you. Yeah, so I mean, I think Harbaugh is a really good coach. I think it's a shame what happened to him, especially that Jed chose Balky over him. That was obviously a horrible mistake. And but just what Kyle's done building it from the ground up, I think is more impressive. And I think we're not done. I think we still it seems to be more sustainable with Kyle. And I don't know how much of that was Balky and how much of that was Harbaugh, but Harbaugh had that reputation of like, hey, he's great for a few years, and then after a while, everybody's like, just get the hell out of here, go on to your next team, type of thing.
Well, Trent Baalke also inherited a winning roster, and then went on the ACL recovery tour, and wasted a lot of draft picks there. Drafting these, maybe you might roll the dice and win kind of guys, but very often it didn't work out. So I don't think Trent Baalke was as good as he was, I guess claimed to be, or all the acclaim that he got. He inherited a winning roster right out of the chute.
I think one more thing, the reason why I like Kyle better is he calls the plays on offense, and Harbaugh had Greg Roman. And, I blame Greg Roman a lot for that Super Bowl for not running Frank Gore down by the goal line when we had so many different plays, so many different opportunities, and so many throws from Kaepernick where I really like Kaepernick a lot, but throwing with touch around the goal line was not one of his things. He had a rocket of an arm, but I always said he had the touch of an iron worker, so
he did throw with touch on that fade. That had touch. It was just too far out.
Yeah,
and let's run that same fade.
But he should have
play
ran
at
it.
least.
They had a great run for Frank Gore until Jim Harbaugh was afraid they were going to get a false start penalty, delay of game penalty, and called timeout and blew it.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
That was the other thing that I will say with Kaepernick. You learned how to be a clock watcher because you knew it was going to come right down, and we were getting penalized all the time for that, running the clock down. That was one thing that I just couldn't figure out. Like, why can't you watch the clock?
Yeah, no, it's frustrating to say the least.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, no, I like Harbaugh a lot. I would definitely give it at least a slight edge to Kyle.
Okay. Yeah, we're all Shanahan here, obviously, but we just, pretty much almost every show we just kind of revert back to the people who say fire Kyle, and they like Jim Harbaugh better, and and stuff like that. So I just wanted to get your take on things. But yeah, these are two key free agents that I think that we should bring back. What do you guys say?
It'll happen. I think we'll either franchise tag Robbie, or we're going to work something out with him.
I can't remember the last time we franchise tagged somebody.
Anybody else? Robbie. It was Robbie Gould.
It was Robbie?
It was Robbie. Yep. Robbie got franchise tagged, and if they do it again, he'll be the second highest paid kicker, and I think that'll put him at like $5 million or something.
And I don't think the Niners have ever franchised, not under Kyle, have ever franchised anybody else besides Robbie Gould either.
No, he's the only one.
Yeah,
and they franchised him, but remember they worked out a long-term
deal,
for him,
right?
long-term, a 2-year deal that took away that tag.
Yeah.
Cool. So Jack Hammer had an article that said 5 players to retain. And those 5 were Brendel, McGlinchey, Gibson, Ebukam, and Amenahu. Do you agree with his 5?
So no Emmanuel Mosley, huh?
Nope.
Ooh, that's
Wow.
interesting.
The list
Mosley-
I saw had Mosley on it. Now I got to think about who did that.
I'd love, McGlinchey would be great if you knew that he was going to come in and take about 50% of his market value. Like, his market value is going to be ridiculous. He is a tackle on the open market. Like, that's just how it is. It's not a it's not a deal where like you gotta go. Like, Laken Tomlinson, to me, like, if everybody remembers the Laken Tomlinson thing last year, I'm telling you, every single article was, I got to resign Laken Tomlinson. He was gone before free agency even began. They're like, oh yeah, he's going to the Jets for $24 billion, right? Like, McGlinchey's going to end up going somewhere else because he's going to be that guy. One of these teams is going to be like, oh, we need a good tackle. He went to Notre Dame, and yeah, he'll fit, right? They'll like his tape. They'll think that their guy can coach him up. He's going to be so out of it. And even if we do sign him, like, you're going to have to keep it at a market deal. And to me, a market deal at that at that is way overpriced. Like, yeah. I don't see it. And you're seeing guys like Taylor Lewan and like other guys with talent. Robert Woods, the Titans started cutting people today, right?
Yep.
It's cut season.
I saw the Taylor Lewan thing. Yeah.
We don't even have the full list of free agents. And let's not even begin to start the post-June 1st free agent stuff, right?
Exactly.
Because remember, there's 2 waves of free agency. There's the initial wave, then there's the draft. So after the draft, it's, we drafted all these other guys so we can cut a bunch of people after June 1st, right? Or, we got this awesome guy in the draft that we weren't expecting to get, so we can cut this guy after June 1st. It's a great way for them to save money and carry cap hit stuff to other places. So there's 2 waves of this, and the 49ers are now in that point, kind of like creating dream teams in the NFL or in the NBA, right? If somebody wants to win, they're going to come here. So that may be the free agent market that we really want to be targeting, but no, they're probably going to get some decent market deals in the meantime.
I think Ebukam is one that we should target to keep. I think with Wilkes coming in as the DC, that's going to, I think, benefit him. And we'll see a lot more aggressive pass rushing. And I think he fits well for that whole scheme. So I think Ebukam is one that we should. And I think Tayshaun Gibson is another one that we should absolutely go after. And Jake Brendel. Those are to me, they're the key ones. But, it wouldn't be bad to try and hold on to Mosley either, and Jimmy Ward. I think.
What's up, Aaron?
Solid.
Ooh.
Let's go down, Aaron.
So Ted, who would be your top 5 picks to retain? Like, if you was writing your article and making a list, who would you say?
I mean, I think I agree with Matt that McGlinchey will be too expensive. I agree. I think Brendel would be nice. I think Mosley would be nice. I like Jack's pick of Gibson, but I hear he's going to retire, so that may not be an option. So what do we got? We got Brendel.
Did he make a decision on that already, or is he leaning towards it?
I heard
leaning. Yeah, it doesn't sound like it's fully decided, but it's a concern for me. But yeah, if we could keep Gibson, I really like him. Mosley, Brendel, Brunskill. And then for the D-line, I was more team Amenahu, but because he's just a more pure pass rusher than Ebukam, and that's what I think we really need from our D end. But this domestic violence charge has me spooked as far as that's a concern. It sounded like it might not be anything from when, or not, I shouldn't say not anything, but not super serious when the police arrived, and that there were no signs of physical damage at the scene of the crime or at the scene of the incident. And then also the girlfriend didn't have a medical examination on site right when the police were there, but she could have easily gone and gotten one afterwards. And so that, unless that somehow clears itself, I that would be too much of a risk for me for Omenihu. I do like Jordan Willis, so I would add him to the list. And
There you go.
I mean, obviously Aziz Al-Shire, but I just don't think that's realistic.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
I think he's off. To
He should
Houston with
already-
Jimmy
yeah.
Ward.
Yeah, I mean,
He
I'd love to keep Jimmy Ward too, but I think he's also too. Plus, it just everything he said makes it sound like he's half 1 foot out the door already.
Look, I mean, D'Amico Ryans is going to want to bring his people in that know his system, and those are two guys that can come right in. And if you've got a smart safety who's good at playing the run, especially in that division, and you bring in a linebacker that you can help build around, that would help them out quite a bit. It's not like the AFC South is some sort of, dominant place where you've got to overcome a Patrick Mahomes or something, right?
Nope.
Jacksonville's going to be your hot pick next year. Everybody's going to assume Jacksonville's going to take that leap. Well, a lot of times these young teams don't take that leap right away. So it's as wide open as it could be next year. So if they can get anything out of Davis Mills, if they can get that Dable to Daniel Jones bounce for Davis Mills, and their defense is pretty good, 9-8 wins that division again. They showed it that happens this year. 8-9 might win it at this point.
Yeah, the AFC South was arguably the weakest division in football this year. The only one that was close to as weak was the NFC South. So,
And, like an 8-9 team getting into the playoffs, like I just can't. That should not happen.
That year Seattle got in at 7-9 or something, wasn't it?
Exactly.
When they
Yep.
beat the Rams.
and weren't
The
the Bucks 8-9 this year, or were they 9-8?
Bucks were 8-9.
Bucks
They're
were
8-9 this
yeah.
year. They
Yeah.
fell right off the wagon this year.
Mm-hmm.
The only player who I would insert in there, I would take McGlinchey out and I would put E-Man in there. I really hope Emmanuel Mosley comes back.
Absolutely. The only problem there is we just don't know when he'll be back, right? I mean, it happened week 5 in Carolina, so it could easily be week 5 of 2023 before he's
Exactly.
back with an
I don't
ACL.
expect him until then, if he were
Yeah.
to come back. That's the earliest I would expect.
As a
him, I would
corner,
say.
ACL is pretty important, that lateral mobility to mirror wide receivers, obviously.
The
So,
good news is you got the PUP for that and everything as well. So they're not going to have to
Yeah.
make a decision on him right
Yeah.
away. He's not going to be taking up anybody's roster spot. And he doesn't have to come back until he's ready, right? Like, we don't – that's the other thing, too, by the way, I hate. Like, we have to wait until May for a schedule. We already know the opponents, right? We already know everything. Like, plug it in. Let's go, right? Instead, we got to wait until May because we got to make it this big event. And it's just this big yappy waste of time. Like, let's go already. Don't tell me you don't already know the schedule that
The
you want to
schedule,
do,
right?
right?
I will.
Like, you
I will
already-
say that I like that big yappy event.
yeah, I love it too, but like, let's go with it already, okay? Like,
Yeah.
it used to be when the draft happened, they would tell you like, hey, wow, Patriots traded for Randy Moss, and they're going to play the Raiders this year. They could, or Brett Favre got traded by the Packers, and they might play this
Yep.
guy. They could, they would preview that during the draft.
They
Which was
would tell
great.
you to circle the date.
Yes, they would tell you to
Already.
circle the date, and now you have to wait 2 weeks after the draft, which they've already pushed out another 2 or 3 weeks over what it used to be. Like, and then there's this dead point right now. Like, let's just get to free agency. Let's go, or let's flop the draft first and then get to free agency. Like, I don't care, man. Like, this is ridiculous. Like, why are you making this drag so long?
Ratings.
Right, but there's what
Ratings,
what are they
advertise
doing
money.
now? Almost every show has a backup host on it in the morning right now. Even like the NFL one, they've got a backup host. I've heard them all week. Like, Florio and Sims didn't even show up this week. Like, NBC's running stuff from podcasts from the Super Bowl. It's insanity.
Yeah, it should definitely be like
They
flowing.
want to
They
take
should just keep it
vacations.
going.
That's fine. It's just that's what you have June for, right? May, like after the like, there's a whole stretch there where like nothing happens except for the 49ers. There's always something happening
He's
with the 49ers. It's like,
Slackers, get to work.
See, now you're speaking that into existence, and now Becca has to shake her candlestick dirt.
see, that's exactly what's going to have to happen now. It's unbelievable. Did you guys listen to the podcast with Mayoko and JLC this week where they talked to the Greg Cosell guy about, the quarterbacks and film and everything.
Yeah.
I thought that really dovetailed into what you talked about, Ty, with Purdy being a tenth of a second late in the playoffs as opposed to what he was in the regular season. And Cosell called that out in that interview. And by the way, there's only a couple different shows that I try to pay attention to because this was the week that the last 2 weeks have been where if you're watching this and you're paying attention, some guy in Boston takes some rumor that he heard from a guy doing turf at Gillette Stadium, right? Yeah,
it was the beer guy.
Patriots going to be they're going to be. He's a producer. These producers do this stuff all the time, and I learned they would throw random Celtics trade rumors out there in July, right? They're bored. They got nothing going on. They need to create talk, right?
Yep.
So they're just having a BS conversation on the air. And the problem with the Boston sports talk station is it's also simulcast on one of the largest FM stations in the world because the FM station itself is on top of Mount Washington. So it's cold up there as well. But it's all over New England. So when somebody hears somebody say something like that, everybody hears it. And unfortunately, the bottom baseline of the fan base isn't aware that these are just guys in the radio station flipping things out there, right?
Yeah.
And then it's really here comes this article, here comes that article. And it's about straight up Patriots are going to be sniffing around Deebo Samuel. Okay, well, the first thing I want to know is what's a cap hit if we trade Deebo Samuel? And it's what, $28.35 million or some ridiculous thing? Get out of here. That's a non-starter. This is a team. There is no way, I don't care how good Parag is, he does not have $28.35 million spare dollars hanging out in his butt, okay? He can't just whip that out like a magic rabbit. It's not there. This isn't happening. Yet I saw at least 10 to 15 articles and hundreds of words wasted on this garbage. And it's like, what in the hell is happening? Source, where you found this? What's the context?
Unnamed
Who said
source.
this? Why did they say this? Don't tell me unnamed sources or you heard. Stop it. If you heard this on Sports Talk Radio, it's not real, okay? Yep. Unless it is a specific interview and the guest is like Schefter or Rappaport or Pelissero or one of these guys and they're in a specific segment, or it's Aaron Rodgers on McAfee and you're hearing it straight from the source, it's not real. It's not real. Say it with me, okay?
It's not real.
Right.
It's not real.
Real. But this is also that time of year where you get other guys who are on radio who are trying to elevate themselves. And they'll, be some guy like, let's say in Colorado, covers the Broncos, never talked about the 49ers before, will say, per my sources in Santa Clara.
Yeah, right.
This player is looking to get out of town. Now, I'm not going to say, why that is, but I
that
heard
source was a cleaning person that was let go of their job for stealing spare bottles and selling them in Michigan for twice the price or whatever, right? Like, however that goes, whatever ridiculousness, that you could possibly have out there. But that's just what they do. And this is that time of year. So before anybody starts running with a source, before you go to your water cooler at work or hop on your Zoom call and talk to your 49er buddies about, did you hear they're going to trade Deebo? Okay.
They're not.
They're not. So just stop it. Just stop it.
And don't jump on your social media regurgitating the garbage.
And then that makes it worse. The echo chamber begins.
Yes.
Don't be a casual. That's the best.
Or
I'm actually, you know what?
roll
I'm
your
proud of
eyes and keep scrolling.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what I did. Because usually, I'll comment and be like, "Oh my god, this crap," blah blah blah. But I just kept it going. And usually, I'll send a text message to you guys about something. But this time, I was like, "No, you know what? I'm just gonna keep scrolling."
Yeah,
Keep
I just
scrolling, and that's it.
couldn't believe it because I heard it live and it was like this off the cuff, like, there's a guy that maybe, like, sure, yeah, that's the Patriots radio network. Maybe he talks to some offensive quality control coordinator. I assure you, Bill Belichick is not telling anybody who they're going after, right? I assure you. I promise you. The only reason the Bill O'Brien thing wasn't a secret is because it was so unbelievably obvious, like nobody could get it wrong, right? Like, come on.
I hope
Yeah,
not.
I mean,
I hope
And-
not. I was reading that.
and Beto, that's a 100% great point. I heard something this week that he might get extended. My concern is that they trade him, and I like Jennings, but maybe they keep Jennings instead because he's going to be a little bit cheaper. But it depends on what they're trying to do. Like, I don't know what what are they looking at for improvement? What do they see what we see? Do they see that they need some more nastiness in that offensive and defensive lines? Are they seeing that maybe they need a little bit more veteran oomph in that secondary? Or are they looking at something else completely different? Are they looking at value in other places? Are they just looking at re-signing our guys and seeing what's left after and picking up after June 1st? Like, we don't know what the plan is.
But hold on, Matt, this is why it's important to know your sources and ignore these fruitless conversations, because it starts to bring up these other questions and these other things like, I think they would trade Ayuk and all this other stuff first. And it's like, wait, time out, pump your brakes.
Yeah.
49ers haven't mentioned trading or doing anything yet. Why is this being talked about? Calm down. Just because you heard some random rumor on late night radio, now you're bringing up all these scenarios. Stop.
That's what it comes down to too. I think what a lot of it is they see other teams.
My heart.
Wow, you guys really, you're crushing that. What you see is when you see these guys get into that fourth or fifth year deal, when you get into that fourth or fifth year deal, everybody's looking for the it's like searching Instagram for the people that have removed photos of their significant other recently, right? Like you're waiting for that.
I've done that in the past.
Yeah, you're waiting for that MGK Megan Fox deal where like she removes everything and like she turns her profile picture black, right? Oh, hey, and then the bat signal comes up and it's your time.
You're
so
like
that's right. So that's what everybody's looking at. Like, okay, well, there's a fourth fifth year option. We got to make a decision. Like this whole thing on Javon Kinlaw, right? One guy on The Athletic says, well, we're not going to pick up the fifth year on Javon Kinlaw. I'm sure we all agree on that, okay? But it was then reported as fact everywhere. Sources, 49ers are picking up the Javon Kinlaw option. Sources? No, it was somebody like making a prediction on The Athletic. That's a source. Like,
that same guy made a video this morning in downtown Burlingame, which is near where I grew up. And he said that the Brock Purdy surgery being delayed might mean that the elbow is healing on its own and won't need surgery at all. And I was like, what? I mean, I know he's always an optimist and he's kind of a company guy. You know? It's funny. It's like you look at him and then there's this other guy who's kind of the hater, the one that asks the tough questions. They're kind of like CNN and Fox News to me, where either one is going to give you the truth. They're both so polar and extreme that neither one can possibly be the truth. You have to kind of watch them both and draw this invisible line down the middle and be like, oh, that's probably where the truth is. They're somewhere in the middle, you know, like most things.
Choose your truth is really what it boils down to, right? Like from what perception filter you want to choose that truth through. And
exactly.
You're seeing it in pro sports and you're seeing it, you see it through the whole world right now, but that like, did a healer touch him and his elbow is healing? No, he
saw a shaman.
He's having more irritation and they want him to be okay. To me, that's not a good, like, what are we doing?
I think that's more mental healing.
Candlestick dirt, baby.
That's Mr. Miyagi right there.
Only if there's like mushrooms growing in that candlestick dirt, I think, for the shaman. If we're talking about, Aaron Rodgers and his ayahuasca / darkness trips.
By the way, is he out of that room yet? Has anybody posted? Like, do we know?
Who?
He was
What?
only supposed to be in there for 4 days. Did they forget about him? Were they like, wow, we are so glad we don't have to listen to him anymore. Let's just leave him in there. Like, is that what like last I heard he was doing that last week? That's not over yet?
Meanwhile, this is like behavior that is outlawed by the Geneva Convention. You're not allowed to do this to your worst war criminals. And he's like doing it self-inflicted, doing it to himself. Like, what is going on with this guy?
He's volunteering for it. Brian, it's okay. You don't need to apologize for that, but because this is what we do, right? You start thinking. But what happens is exactly what you did, right? Like, we start looking around for the 4th, 5th year options, who might get picked up, who might not get picked up. And then people are trying to do math, right? Oh, wow, the 49ers are going to re-sign Nick Bosa. Well, are they going to have room for Brandon Ayuk? I don't know. How's that going to go? Like, are they going to have room for this guy? They just signed Debo. They just did this. Well, guess what? They've already got their 2 quarterbacks signed up for the next couple of years, and they already know exactly what those salaries are going to be. So I think they have a plan. I think they probably know what they're doing. So relax and calm down. And if Ayuk getting traded is part of that, well, there is probably a reason for it, right?
Yeah, I'm not a fan of that though. Like
I'm not either. But
I mean,
the only one that really I've hated, the one deal that they made that everybody regrets is the DeForest Buckner deal, right? And you're just waiting for them to not do another one of those. You don't want to trade Ayuk and have him shine in another city. That would be a bad time. And I think he showed enough this year to where like you can't.
Yeah, you can't do that.
You can't.
I thought he showed the same grit and determination that you're getting from Kittle and the rest of those guys, where he's fighting for extra yards. He's out there really, really leveling up his game. He's holding on to balls better than he did. He's always had a few issues with that, but I thought he grew immensely this year.
For Defoe, I wasn't totally against that just because of the front-loaded nature of his contract, what he got paid, all the guys we got to keep in 2020 because of it. If Kinlaw had worked out different, if we had just drafted Wirfs instead of Kinlaw, I think we would have looked at it as a pretty good trade. I think basing what we picked with that draft pick doesn't diminish that what we got for DeForest Buckner was a good deal for what he wanted, what it would have done to the team to keep him. And then everybody says, well, everybody got hurt in 2020. I get it. Like all these guys, we kept all these guys and it didn't work out. But at the time we made the trade, everybody was healthy and it looked like we were running back a Super Bowl runner-up team. And so I do understand that mentality of trying to keep as many people as we could from that squad. And so like you said, everybody hated the Defoe trade. I'm going to say like I was actually more in favor of the trade than against it. And so like I'll be the one lone wolf on that one, I guess.
I was too. I was kind of for it.
Well, we kept Eric Armstead, we kept Jimmy Ward, we kept Verrett would not have been here without that. Brunskill, Mullins. Okay, I wouldn't have missed him, but
he needed somebody to throw passes that year. Unfortunately,
what it came down to was with the front-loaded contract. I mean, Buckner got like $24.5 million that first year, and Eric Armstead and Jimmy Ward together added up to 10. So we had like $14 or $13.5 million to spend on free agents that we wouldn't have had, plus the first round draft pick, plus when we traded back, that gave us the third round pick that we used to move up for Ayuk. And so there was a lot of moving pieces with that trade. So like I've like on the timeline, I've fought on behalf of it a lot. I still miss Buckner. He's an amazing player. The one thing I always say to everybody is like, how many playoff games have the Colts won with DeForest Buckner?
Well, it's not. DeForest Buckner's not going to win by himself. So
but he's the highest paid player on that defense.
Right.
Even after
still playing well, and that's why we're all having this discussion around.
Yeah, he's a great player, no doubt about that. Yeah. It's just, is he great for $21 million a year front loaded?
Well, there's always that debate, right?
Yeah.
Hey, maybe he gets to be a cap casualty at some point, and he can come back here on a team-friendly deal, right? And then we can complete the circle and those sorts of things happen from time to time,
too.
right?
I love the player. I was sad to see him go. I would love to have him back, but I just wanted to say just some reasons why I was maybe more pro the trade than against it, and still kind of understand why we did it.
At the time, in theory, you kind of had to make that gamble because you needed the depth, you needed the roster. But I think since then, because of how it's turned out, particularly as you mentioned with the Kinlaw pick, revisionist history is, it's the worst.
Oh yeah,
and now
that Armstead's
we've
going to
completely forgotten about OJ Simpson for 2 first-rounders, but
now it's Armstead making $24 million, and Defoe is making like 17 or 18 or something reasonable due to the way that deal was structured. Yeah, now it seems extra painful for sure this season. And
definitely no sources on bringing back anything. You don't. If somebody turns this into a Twitter meme, and I see this on Instagram that sources DeForest Buckner would be 49ers sniffing around DeForest Buckner, I'm going to lose my mind. Stop it. Stop it right now.
Please do it. And make sure you tag Maddie.
Yeah, please.
No.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, no, I mean, and especially with Armstead missing half of 2022, and then the other half he didn't have a sack until the Seahawks game. Yeah, I mean, I get it. And the one thing I will say to those sack people, though, is Eric Armstead did have 2 key pressures that led to Jimmy Ward's 2 interceptions. So sometimes
about it on this show.
Sometimes the pressure is better than a sack. So.
Look, the defensive linemen, I don't really expect the defense, unless you're Reggie White, man, like clubbing people, which you're not allowed to do anymore, really. I'm expecting you to just create a problem, right? Push back in. Yep. I want my edges to come off. The guy I'm expecting next year to take a big leap, particularly if he's working out with 49ers approved trainers and getting a full season in, is Drake Jackson. I think if you have somebody on the other side, like the one thing that this team needs is that one extra impact defensive player. Like you mentioned it earlier, in 81, they got it with Fred Dean. In 94, they got it with Deion Sanders. They tried to get it in 2019 with Dee Ford, and he started breaking down, and then now it's Dee Ford's cap hit, right? So somebody has to
I miss him.
Come across on the other side. Somebody has to be the bookend on the other side, whether it's Jackson, whether it's Willis, whether it's Ebukam. I don't care who it is. Somebody has to be on that other side so that it's not all on Nick Bosa. And so that when these guys are pushing people back into the quarterback, they're not just running around and going to wherever they need to go, right? That to me is the key. And I'm looking at Drake Jackson. Our nation turns its lonely eyes to you, Drake Jackson. I'm looking for him to make that jump next year.
If I'm in the organization, if I'm in the coaching staff, whomever, I'm grabbing Drake Jackson and I'm grabbing Nick Bosa and I'm bringing them together and I'm saying, hey, why don't you 2 train in the offseason together? Hey, Drake, go shadow Nick. Go see what it's like to be able to get your body ready for a full 17+ game season and come out next year on fire.
Get him on that
offensive line trained with Trent Williams.
I'd fly him right down to Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah, get Drake on that salmon diet.
I was just gonna say, eat your egg whites and broccoli for breakfast, baby.
But
do as I say, not as I do, Drake.
I mean, last year we focused on the secondary and special teams. So this year I feel like they're gonna focus a lot on the offensive and defensive lines. As far as Kinlaw goes, I mean, obviously, I think we can all come to a general consensus that the 5th-year option is not going to be picked up. He's played 10 games in 2 seasons. They have until May 1st to pick up the 5th-year option. What do you think is going to happen with him, Ted?
I think we'll try and trade him. We can't. I mean, you can't cut him, so you got to trade him. He's got a guaranteed contract.
What sort of trade are you trying to do there?
Jones and others, will they just let him walk?
I mean, I heard Larry Krueger said trade him for Mekhi Becton off the Jets, their failed tackle. And he said, Kinlaw's a bad knee, Becton has a bad knee. But, to me, it doesn't really make sense because A D lineman with a bad knee, you can have him in for a few plays, you can pull him out, you got it in a rotation. O linemen, like they got to be in there all the time. You can't be rotating. I mean, I guess we kind of did with Burford and Brunskill, but I just don't think that is feasible for an O lineman. It's an interesting idea, but something like that, maybe Kinlaw for Zach Wilson. I don't know.
What's the cap hit though? This is the other issue again with Kinlaw. What's that cap hit if you trade him or release him? Right? If you release him, is there anything there? My guess is there probably is. There's probably some sort of
$5 million if you cut him, I think.
Yeah. And is it post June 1st? Is it pre June 1st? Kinlaw to me is really, it's going to be, is he healthy? Is he able to compete in OTAs? Is he able to participate in the off-season program? Are they liking where he's at? And if the hit isn't too bad for releasing him after June 1st, maybe they release him after June 1st if somebody outplays him because they know that maybe he's only going to be available for 5 or 6 games. If they still believe that he's healthy and they still believe in his talent, they've got him under contract for this year anyway, and that's how it is. So
it's just those
I think it's going to be a matter of who competes with him in camp is really what it boils down to.
Those first round picks are fully guaranteed is the problem. And so cutting just doesn't make any sense. You just take whatever you can in a trade scenario is what I think it comes down to.
It's like you get a 6-rounder conditional, yay,
Yeah, maybe.
I think he stays on. I think he's with us for 2023, and then after
I think that's more likely. I'm just saying, I think they'll try to trade him if they can.
I'm bringing up the old stuff right now because now I want to know because.
Well, other teams know that we're in this bind too, so they're like you said, Maddie. They're not going to offer a lot for him.
If they cut it, though. Like
what's that?
When he's out there, he's serviceable. We can use him on first down, maybe
second
down, rotate him in.
Mm-hmm.
There's that footage from the Eagles game where he got blown up, but most of the time he's going to sit in there and eat up double teams and help keep our linebackers clean. When Maddie was talking about what we want a defensive tackle to do, that's what I want a DT to do. Like keep, be serviceable in the run game, against the run game and keep our linebackers clean so that they can make plays. That's the really key stuff.
He's a $2.2 million cap hit if he's traded, by the way. He's 4.9 if he's cut post June. It doesn't matter. But trade is 2.2 in dead money.
Still noticeable for sure, but
definitely a difference between 4.9 to 2.2. So if you see him get traded, maybe he ends up in Houston, right? Maybe he goes down there to teach some of those guys on the defensive line the system or whatever it is. Or the Jets trade a conditional 7th rounder for him because they know he knows the system. Mm-hmm. And you're starting to see the Shanahan tree and these guys sprinkle out, right? So there's going to be a lot more places for these guys to go to, right? So I wouldn't be shocked if he's not on the roster opening week, not because I think he's a bad player. I just think it hasn't worked out. He hasn't been healthy. Maybe he gets healthy and starts tearing up the league. But my guess is if he gets healthy this offseason, they'll keep him. If not, then if somebody's better, then they'll try to trade him for something. If not, I don't know if they want to eat that 4.9.
They don't.
I'm still on the Brian Burns train.
There you go.
Still got another year on that.
I know.
Yeah.
And
I think from last summer I've been on that train, so I'm still speaking it out into existence.
Well, the thing about Brian Burns and is he's a Panther, and so a lot of Panthers I think will want to come with Steve Wilks. So I think there is a connection there, at least for motivation. Contractually, like you said, it's probably a year away, but we might see other players that are free agents, or there might be trade opportunities with the Panthers to reunite some of their defenders with Steve Wilks. So that's
another guy to keep an eye on. That if the Cardinals don't re-sign him, might be able to be available. Would be Nick Allen. He was playing pretty well last year before he got hurt off the defensive end slot, and I believe he played for that Steve Wilks defense back when Wilks was with Arizona. So kind of that.
Dude, but that dance he does. Come on, Matt. Really?
Remember the 94 team had all sorts of dancing, and we haven't won a Super Bowl since. So bring it all back as far as I'm
concerned.
I'm just kidding.
Have Burton Hanks come out before every game and do the chicken dance for all I care.
Funky chicken?
Yeah, have Ricky Waters and William Floyd come in and do their dances. Get Dion to come in and do his. Like, get every player to come in and reenact their dances from the 1994 season. I don't care. Go up there and pretend you're Michael Jackson doing a Diet Pepsi commercial in circa 1988. Just win me the 6th Super Bowl before I die, please. That's all I
I was
care about.
4.
What about the Icky Shuffle?
He didn't play for the 49ers. Didn't
Yeah, I was
No.
gonna say.
I only want the
Ronnie
celebrations from the
Lott killed
94
the
team.
Shuffle.
Other teams are completely irrelevant to me. Like, go
Okay.
sing Super Bowl Shuffle. Bring Huey Lewis back. We'll have the guys
Right?
sing Huey Lewis songs again. I don't care. Bring it all back. The San Francisco Gay Men's Choir. Update that. I don't care. All of it. Bring it all back. All of it.
Dire Straits with the Walk of Life and Roger Craig
Yeah.
high knee stepping. Come on. Yeah, it's
The
a whole
dude who sang
vibe.
Ooh,
Come
Dire
On
Straits.
Hannah back in
That's
2011.
good.
All of it.
Good
Let's
call.
go.
Next,
Let's
pull that
have a
out.
full season
Nice.
concert this year.
Do the walk of life.
Yeah,
Well,
sometimes
Wasn't
Ted,
this-
sometimes
this
we
is it
sing
for
on here.
1981.
It wasn't too long ago that
We
we
break
had like
out
a
in
Billy
song.
Joel episode, so
Oh, we was
No,
quoting
I
Billy
mean,
Joel.
I would just say, don't quit your day jobs. So,
Look, we can whip
Okay,
out the
Hannibal.
bag.
Learned that lesson a long time ago,
Studio
my
for
friend.
10.
Yeah, learned a long time ago there. Yeah.
Who invited this guy? No.
you notice you haven't heard me try to sing. There's a reason. I'm terrible.
It was great having you on, Ted.
My wife, however, beautiful voice. It's like an angel. But be glad I've spared you. That's all I can say.
So Ted, with the the 49ers Super Bowl teams, who is your Mount Rushmore?
My Mount Rushmore. So my top 4 players from all the Super Bowl win. I'm going to go with the wins. Obviously I got to go Joe for going 4-0. I got to go Jerry. Got to go Ronnie. So I'm just looking at one more. Wow, that's so tough after that. Joe, Ronnie. I guess Steve Young. I mean, I'm wearing his jersey, so I mean, I gotta have him on
Got to
there.
give him a shout out.
Yeah, well, I mean, he still has the Super Bowl record for 6 touchdowns and 0 interceptions. So
And they could have had more. And they'll
they
tell you
could've.
that too.
they could have.
Yep.
They could have. I mean, there's so many other. Roger Craig is hard to leave off. I'm a big Roger Craig fan. But there's 4 on Rushmore, so those will be my 4.
Okay, so talk about could have had more, Ted.
I mean, Dion.
If George Seifert doesn't take his foot off the gas in the '90 Super Bowl against the Broncos, how many
True.
touchdowns would Joe had in that game?
I tell you, he was hot, and he had 5 already, right? So
He had 5 and didn't play
Yeah.
the fourth quarter.
right. So yeah, he could have 6 or 7 himself. It's true. Yeah, I mean, Joe, he's still my GOAT. I mean, some people say Brady, but I say if Joe was protected, if he couldn't hit his
Yeah.
feet, and he couldn't hit them high, but it was more than that. It was the way. It was like 2 seconds after the play, some D lineman would come up and pile drive him into the ground when he's just standing there, and break his back basically. It's like that was.
Imagine the
Yeah.
face shots and the head shots that get called for 15 yards nowadays. Imagine how much different it would have been back then for like the Giants and the Bears. Like there would have been forfeits because they would have had enough players to play each week because
Yep,
that's
and they
literally
kicked
all they did.
Every
That's all
game.
they
Right?
did,
It's all they did.
Yeah, it was brutal. I mean, the beating that
concrete.
man took was unconscionable, and I think he would have easily won 6, 7, 8 Super Bowls if he had been coddled like Brady. So
Different era.
Yep.
So the Niners hired Clint Kubiak, hired him to replace Bobby Slowick as the passing game coordinator. What do you guys think about that? Maddie, go ahead.
I really like it. Last time you had a Kubiak on the staff, it went really well. Like any time you can go back into the past and make that work, that's good. Now you've got 2 Kubiaks on the staff, which I
Mhm.
think is tremendous, right? So now you don't only have Mike Shanahan on retainer as an unofficial, advisor for the team, but you got Gary Kubiak,
Yeah.
as an unofficial advisor for the team. As many Super Bowl winning quarterbacks as you can possibly get
Yep.
that have eyes, that have played in this system, that have coached this system, or have coached other systems that you converge with this system. Anybody that can suggest anything, and you can create something like Corn Dog in the Super Bowl a couple weeks ago, right? That's what that's from. It's a bunch of people, it's all 3 Spider-Mans getting into the lab and creating, fixing everything, right? That's what it is. That it's the same deal. So
Sure, you don't
whatever
mean
you
like
can
the
find.
Red Hulk and the Green Hulk and the.
No, I know I'm going for actual movies of things that have happened at this point, right? It's things that we have seen. All 3 Spider-Men at once fixing things at the same time, right? To me, that's what I see when you've got, like, you could just, unfortunately, Bill Walsh isn't around anymore, but boy, Mike Shanahan knew a little bit about that offense. I wonder if sometimes Mike Holmgren doesn't get a call. He knows a little bit about that offense here and there, right? But right off the top of my head, Gary Kubiak and Mike Shanahan,
Yeah.
it's not bad. It's not bad. As Steve Young talks all the time about how Mike Shanahan unlocked his career, right? And he almost went to play in Denver. He just couldn't stand not playing for the 49ers, so he retired instead. But, that's how strong that bond was. But those are guys that, when you need that extra play, that 2-point conversion play, or that we got to get 7 points now play, that comes out of those brainstorming sessions, because they're able to, well, what if we hide this guy over here? And what if we send this person in motion and then double them back, or whatever? Like, those are cooks you want in your kitchen.
Ty, what do you think?
I like it. It fits the theme, right? We talk about how Christian McCaffrey was born to play in this system. Clint and Clay were born to coach in this system.
Mm-hmm.
It just makes us stronger. And it's like Matt said, you got the pops at the top, and they're kind of overseeing things, being the old men on the mountain, like, hey, son, if you do this, they're playing that cover 3 tight inside. If you fake inside, run that post, it's wide open. Run that corner, it's wide open. These are the type of things that they get on a daily basis, that they grew up with. And one thing we know that Kyle has always done is build a strong coaching staff. No matter how many coaches he loses from year to year, he seems to bring in the proper people to keep his staff strong. And this is just a continuation of that. So I love it.
Becca, go ahead.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think all of these guys we're naming, they all have eaten this system for breakfast their whole entire lives, right? Like,
There you
there's
you
probably not a day in their life where literally at breakfast there wasn't some talk about some play or something football related going on from the early days of the system. So I think it's a great move. I think it's somebody who's going to understand it very well and have the resources to reach out to and can pull that elder statesman, man on the mountain wisdom into their decision making. Absolutely, it's a great move. I like it.
Ted, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm a big fan. Kyle does a great job of hiring coaches. You just see it every year. I think he got 8 taken away in 2021, and 11 in 2022, and what are we up to, 5 or 6 already here in 2023. So he does a great job of hiring new coaches, restocking. Hopefully he can do as good a job of finding us a 3rd quarterback, because I think we're going to need a strong one.
Yeah.
And the funny part is that, like, each year, like, going back to the whole, like, people criticizing Kyle Shanahan, like, about the coaches leaving, like, everybody, like, frets, like, oh, we're losing all our coaches. And they still don't see what this man does
over and over again.
Right.
Yep.
He restocks the cupboard. It's like going to it's like going to Costco or BJ's or Sam's Club or wherever your local wholesale place is, right? After your kids have eaten you out of house and home for 2 weeks, you go back and you restock, and boom, your cupboards are full again. Like, he's able to do that every offseason. And there's 2 reasons for that. One, he's created a culture here that people want to be a part of, right? Steve Wilkes didn't get the Carolina job. He very well, easily, based on his resume and what he did with that team last year, after they were left in smoldering ashes after the 49ers got done in Charlotte last year. He came in and made them respectable. Heck, they almost won the division. Had they any sort of quarterback, they might have been able to pull it off, right? So his line of work has been showed. He got no chance in Arizona. That they wanted to start over there, and that's what they wanted to do. And sometimes that sort of thing happens. So he's in a spot where if he does well, he knows he's going to be able to springboard this into a job right away, right? And then you got Kubiak coming in, and you had Anthony Lynn. Anthony Lynn sticking around, right? Like he's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
These are all accomplished guys that were accomplished head coaches, and now they're going to come back. And to me, after they've been a head coach, they always seem to be a better position coach after that, because it's like, man, they really like that more, and they're like, man, I don't really want to be I don't really want to. Maybe they want to be a head coach again, or maybe they're like, screw that, I don't want to be, right? Like either way. But the other part of this is this organization pays these guys enough to where they want to be here, right? Some of these teams, you don't get that sort of money for a staff, right? You've got this budget, you got to fill it in. So if you get yourself a quality control guy who's really good at making copies and can maybe copy some of the plays for you, great, you get them started. But here that's not an object. If they want to bring somebody in as an offensive assistant or a defensive assistant or an advisor or somebody like that, there's no salary cap on that. It's just one thing where that being a fan of this franchise, they're not going to cheap out on that. They're not going to do something stupid like, give Matt Patricia and Joe Judge a chance to be an offensive coordinator and learn on the fly, right? They're not going to waste a season like that. They're going to go out and get somebody who knows how to coach a quarterback or who has played quarterback before, right? Yep. I mean, even the Brian Griese thing, we kind of questioned it all last year a little bit, right? We're pulling this guy out of the Monday Night Football booth, and now all of a sudden he's going to be a quarterback coach. I'd say he did pretty well last year, right? So they're clearly pretty good at building this coaching staff.
Same thing with John Lynch.
Yeah.
And don't forget Adam Peters is sticking around too.
Yep.
Everybody they pulled in. Everybody. Yeah. The core is still there, right?
Yep.
That's
the only one I'm a little worried about is Rand Carthon, who went to Tennessee.
Why so?
I think he might be one of those guys that was up there with Adam Peters in our scouting department as one of the key guys for these late round picks. So that one worries me a little bit, but hopefully I'm wrong, and hopefully it's just like, there's no track record to say that Kyle won't do a great job like he always has. It's just that one worries me a little bit.
This is going to be called 7th year of coaching, right?
Yes.
Head coaching.
Full 7 years. Yeah. He started with us 2017, right?
Mm-hmm.
For the last, so that's just one less than the 8 years that IE Sports Radio has been around, right? And IE Sports Radio has been bringing you amazing content with interviews with athletes and coaches and content creators, and of course building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. All the while, it's continued to be by the fans and for the fans, exactly like this one, which you should like and subscribe to on every platform that you can find us on, by the way, including the YouTube one. When you go to the website, iesportsradio.com, you're going to see a Patreon link there with 5 different tiers, and the first one starts at just $5 a month. And that donation gets you shout out on all the shows, including this one. Higher tiers include IE Sports Radio merchandise, access to Podcaster University, not to be confused with Tight End University, and even a chance to be featured on a segment of the flagship show, The Defining Moment. Thank you all very much for continuing to make IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all that is sports. Again, that's iesportsradio.com.
Thank you, Maddie. Good job.
Outstanding.
Now back to your regularly scheduled programming, please. Of us trying to vet every single off-season rumor. Is it real? Is it fake? Is it real? Is it fake? Right? That's
And
really
that's
what it
going to
is.
go
Where did it
on
come
for a while.
from? You better it's
tis
going to be
the
going
season.
on all the way up until. And I've been going back because for my off season, I prefer to like stay the hell away from that stuff, and I try to dive into previous seasons. So I'm up to week 4 of the 1994 season. For those that follow Niners Northeast on Instagram, that's the number 9. You'll see an interview from Monday Night Football halftime with Al Michaels and Eddie DeBartolo Jr. After Peter King had told Brent Musburger that it looked like Deion Sanders would be going to Miami. They were the leaders in the clubhouse. And Eddie DeBartolo said, yeah, we're out at this time. We're out at this time. They lose to Kansas City the next week. And then 3 days later, Deion Sanders is having a press conference and is making his debut against the Rams. And that was it. That was the impact play. That was the player you needed. And 2 weeks earlier, they were saying on national television that wasn't going to be there. So it's very possible, just like this year, getting Christian McCaffrey, week 5, somebody becomes available for whatever reason that they need, this team will be in a spot to get them, right? So I also have that faith in that. Like, I'm not going to freak out and be like, well, the finished product is opening night. We don't know. Until that trade deadline hits, we don't know who is going to be on this roster moving forward. But I have faith that this team not only can get the person they need to get them over the top if they want them, but that person that they want will want to come here because they want to win. Because those are the type of people that you want here.
Sure.
I'm sorry. I'm laughing at the comment.
What, the one by Steve-O?
Uh-huh. Meaning it did have TV that you can now like put clips on the internet.
It was barely internet. It was
Just
internet
barely
via
there.
CD, and you only had so many hours.
Dial
of
up,
it.
baby.
The dial
Yeah.
up on AOL, right?
That's right.
And when Grandma would call you and interrupt your AOL instant
Cut you off.
messenger, like,
Mhm.
Grandma, I'm on the internet
All
and
the
you're killing
time.
me." So I gotta
So-
leave this ICQ chat.
So next week is the NFL Combine. Anybody watch the NFL Combine?
Yeah.
I
What
usually
do you what do you guys look at? Look at? Go ahead, Ted.
I mean, always I look at the really fast players like Tariq Woolen from last year, who did really well for the Seahawks. Somebody who could come in, and it's the one thing we're still missing. Maybe Danny Gray will be that person for us. Maybe all he needs is somebody with a big arm like Lance to utilize his skill set. But until we have a proven deep threat, I think that's one thing I'd still love to see us get. Also, tight ends. I've been wanting a tight end since 2020 draft. So 2020, 2021, 2022, 3 drafts. I've been waiting for a tight end who can block and catch to go alongside Kittle. Maybe even eventually be his replacement a few years down the road. But hey,
You are
hey,
excommunicated.
Ted.
Voted
hey,
off
he's
the
my
island.
favorite player too, Jess. So he's
Won't
my
see
favorite
Ted back
player,
on this
too.
show.
Yes.
I almost want to
Yes,
hug
you
my
know,
cutouts
take
right
a walk,
now.
walk the house, walk around the building.
Ted just got sacrificed for the soul stone, is what
No,
just
but
happened
like,
here,
oh my
folks.
goodness.
people say like,
Oh my god.
people
Just
say,
go to the bad
people
juju,
say,
Ted. Burn the
people
stage.
say like, oh, you're saying it because of
La, la,
Croft
la, la.
in the NFC Championship game, and it's like, no, it's not because of Croft. He blew a block on a really good pass rusher, one of the best up there with our Nick Bosa. I mean, Hassan Reddick is a stud. But we've had all these half tight ends. We had Warner, who can only block, and Dwelly, who
As
can only
proven by the
catch.
Atlanta game.
Yeah, and you're right. Yeah, that horrible drop pass. Yeah,
Don't
and
have.
Dwelly can block if he gets ahead of steam, but if you ask him to block in line, like with his feet planted, the guy's worthless. He can't block his way out of a paper bag. So, yeah.
And he could only catch against Seattle.
I really want a tight end. I mean, beyond the needs we've talked about, right tackle, defensive end, defensive tackle, safety, those are the bigs. But then maybe 5th on the list for me is that tight end. I'd love to get a tight end. who
Sam
can block
Laporta
and
from
catch.
Iowa, baby. Sam
I've heard-
Laporta. Let's go.
I've heard
Back to the
I've
well.
heard really good things. Yeah, it's Kittle you.
Back to the well.
Kittle,
If not, I'm sure
Hawkinson,
Iowa State has a tight end that had great chemistry with Brock Purdy.
Noah Fant too. Yep.
Yeah, Noah Fant. Yeah, they've cranked out some good tight ends for sure. So
I agree with Steve-O. I think the combine should be in pads. To an extent.
I'll piggyback off of that in a second when I talk about my thing. But like,
well, yeah, because there's track speed and there's football speed, right? And
Right.
so they should also be forced to hold a ball if they're on offense. Because what's the point other than, well, I guess receivers run before they have the ball, but running backs, they should be forced to run with the ball in their hand because that's
can they handle it? Can they handle a
because it
snap
makes a
of a wet
difference.
ball? Right, get the ball out.
Yeah.
I don't get the ball wet and put it in the freezer. Can you throw an icy ball? Like that's
And
what I
what-
want to see. We just did all this stuff with the Pro Bowl, right? All this stuff
Yeah.
to make it all jazzy. When you're talking about combine stuff and stuff like that, like a lot of the stuff on that is like, medical things and things of that nature, right?
Yeah.
Like I want to see more of that all-star game. Like to me, the combine, I don't so much pay attention to the players in the combine. I talk about the players they talk about at the combine because that means their agent is talking about them. So that I can look at other players that their agent might be representing so that you can see other guys and where they might be going and where they might fit. But the other thing I like to hear about from the combine is who teams are looking at based on who they might be getting rid of in a couple of weeks because they really like this guy at the combine, right? That's a sort of thing there. To me, it's a chatter event. It's like Major League Baseball winter meetings, right? Everybody's in the lobby and they're waiting for the thing. Like, and while the Underwear Olympics is going on, there's going to be this breaking news about this and this news about that, right? I'm sure there's somebody out there has cured something based on somebody's 3-cone drill, but there are probably a lot more rumors and things are out there that are probably the thing that I pay more attention to. I try to watch the all-star games, like the Senior Bowl, stuff like that, because then you can see these guys play sometimes against competition that they were not playing against. And these guys are actually playing. They're not treating this like guys used to treat the Pro Bowl, right? Like they're playing against each other. So those are the things I pay attention to a little bit more than the combine. I pay attention to the combine as like a gossip factory, not so much like how's his wingspan, right? Like,
well, see, I always look at the things like the wingspan and their vertical jumps and then their speed drills and things like that. I think that's kind of a little bit about their measurables and what their athleticism potential might be. But, I miss Moyock. He used to do the best with talking through exactly what you're talking about, Matt, where somebody has a need and they're looking at this guy at the combine and what might be happening behind the scenes with the team. And
did a really good job of translating that.
Somebody up.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I do miss his coverage of the combine because I thought he really always did a good job of sort of alluding to some of those players who might become available and who a team is looking at and why and what measurables the guy has that fits whatever particular need a team has. But no, I always watch combine. It's fun.
It's really too bad that he didn't. I don't think he really got a fair shake with the Raiders because I don't think I have a sneaking suspicion that most of the player selections that he made were not made by him. I think most of those were
Blame it on the
finalized by the Gruden. Like I wonder, like John Lynch has been given, has done some things here. Like how would Mike Mayock have been under Kyle Shanahan, right? Like to me, this is a guy that did a lot of different things. I think if he ended up in a different situation, he would have been better. If I'm him, I would have just gone right back to broadcasting immediately. And I'm pretty sure I heard him in the playoffs last year doing broadcasting. I would go back to broadcasting and be like, look, I was in the league. There were a lot of players that I had on the list that should have been drafted and weren't, but I wasn't in the room for that. So I'm just going to hang out here and broadcast, right? Like that's what it is.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't think anybody would fault him for that because that was an absolute gong show of a situation. So
speaking of Gruden and Mayock, they picked a defensive end just after Nick Bosa by the name of Cleveland Farrell.
Oh yeah, went really
out
well.
of Clemson. Did not go well.
Mhm.
But, you would call him a bust based on where he was picked.
Mhm.
But based on the fact that I think he's going to be a free agent this year, doesn't that seem like just the type of guy that Chris Kosarek could take and rehabilitate, kind of
Yep.
like an Arden Key?
Yep.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's like they find limping dogs on the sidewalk. They come on in. We're gonna get you up. We're gonna
feed
take care of your vet
you,
bills. And we're gonna feed you, and we're gonna
fine.
rehab you, and we're gonna teach you how to act around cats, and like the whole thing. And
you're
then,
gonna be
they're
okay.
functional
Rub
again,
your belly
right?
once in a
It's
while.
the same thing that Bob McKittrick used to do with the offensive linemen. It's
O-line.
Yeah.
unbelievably eerie to me how both things do it. Like they find the square pegs and they make them fit perfectly into the round hole.
No doubt
I
about
think
it.
it's more than that.
Anyway.
They identify the players with those traits that they
Right.
like. That you
Yeah.
feel I can work with that. That fits my system. I just need to fine tune him and get him going. So they reach out and bring that guy in. And kudos to them for, one, identifying the player and bringing them in, and for like a John Lynch to listen to a Chris Eric to say, hey, you want this guy? Okay. You want Kerry Hyder? All right, I'll bring him in.
I'll get him back,
Sugar.
right?
Yeah, I'll bring him back for you.
Yeah, I could see him, Arden Key coming back.
Yeah,
I could see that too. Yeah.
Mhm.
that would
Maybe both. Get Arden Key and Clelin Farrell.
let's go. Stock
Ty,
it up.
what do you? Go ahead, Maddie.
I was going to say they had to stock up that defensive line in '94. Richard Dent hurt his knee, so they ended up going out and signing Charles Band that week. They had signed Ricky Jackson from New Orleans, and it wasn't just Dion that they signed that year either. Like they had to sign Ken Norton. They got Gary
Signed a bunch
Plummer
of
from the
guys.
Chargers. Like they loaded up on defense, and they loaded up at multiple positions with multiple snaps. We talk all the time about that draft that they did with Lott and Williamson and Wright. But Lynn Thomas played a lot of snaps for that defense as well and played a long time, and it was also in that draft.
Ty, what do you
Depth.
what do you look for at the combine?
I looked at when they do the actual drills to see how they move, what they look like in action, in action, put that in quotes. Just to get a sense of, how they look on the field, how comfortable are they, because if they don't look good, doing these drills, like you have to question how good are they going to look, on the field. So like when you see the wide receivers running across the field and those catching drills that they do, are they smooth? Are they fluid? Are they coming in and out of their breaks correctly? When you see a DB and his back pedal and he has to turn, is he fluid in that? So those are things I look for.
Those wide receiver drills, I'm not really a big fan of because they're not really catching the ball. You know what I mean?
It's
Like they're
kind of a pop.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And it's kind of, I don't know. To me, that's.
Yeah, I look more for the ones where they go deep and have to catch the ball over their shoulder. Are they tracking the ball right? Are they a body catcher versus a hand catcher? That's the type of things I look for.
The other thing too that makes me not get all meh about the combine is are they taking the combine seriously, or are they going to take the college pro day seriously? Because you've got two schools of thoughts on that depending on how it goes. And I've attended a lot of college pro days previously. University of Maine has one every year, and there are scouts up there for it every single year. They go all the way up to Orono, which is an hour and 45 minutes from where I live, right? That way.
I
And
think you should be our
through-
correspondent.
Yeah, it's great.
Go up there and
You
do
literally all you're doing is watching guys do bench presses. It's probably the most
Mhm.
boring thing in the history of time, and nobody from any of the teams wants to talk because they're all scouts and they don't technically work. They technically aren't there, even though they're all there, and they'll tell you they're from the Broncos, the Texans, the Patriots, the Raiders, they're whoever they're from, right? Whatever they're doing, but they don't want to talk to you. So it's like, what are we doing here, right? That's why the combine is like pro day Super Bowl all at once. That's why the rumors are great for that. But for the workouts to me are usually best at the college campuses because those guys are trying to up it and do better than all of their teammates, right? This is kind of their last shot to go out with their teammates a little bit. And I think that's where most of their effort's going to end up being. And they're going to be comfortable there too. They're going to be on their own field typically, unless you come from a D3 school and then you're going up to practice on Maine. But, you're going to be more comfortable with it. You're going to know your way around. You're going to know the training facilities a little bit more. You're just going to be a little bit more you.
All right. So does anybody want to chat about anything else? All right. So let's go to our hurry up offense and the 2-minute warning.
Who's going first? Who's on first?
I think Becca's going to go first.
All right. I love it when Becca goes first. And go.
And go. Good luck to Purdy whenever surgery is. We thought it was today. It's not. We're shaking the candlestick dirt for you. All's going to be well. Don't listen to the rumors. It's the off season. Go Niners. We'll see how this all shakes out.
Go ahead, Ty.
Congrats to the U.S. Women Nationals team for winning their 4th straight CONCACAF Cup. That's just a prelude to what's going to happen in the World Cup. So go team. And I'd like to say 49er fans, you should be happy because 2 years ago, Dallas Cowboy Michael Irvin tried to recycle the Tim Tebow chant for Deebo Samuels, and it never took off. So be thankful for that because no 49er should ever want anything from a Cowboy.
Words to
Go
live
ahead,
by.
Ted.
Just want to say, go Niners. I think the silver lining from this Brock Purdy surgery being pushed back is that it's going to give Trey Lance a really good chance to show what he can do. I think that he's going to have the opportunity to show that he's the starter of the team. And if he doesn't, hopefully Purdy will be back in time to save the season if Lance is unable to. But I think we have a really good shot this year. I do think we need a third QB. And but I think we're going to contend again. I think we're going to be right there. NFC Championship again if all goes well. We got a strong core, and I wouldn't be surprised to see Kyle go all in this season, kind of like the Rams did.
I am going to piggyback off of Becca. Brock, good luck with your surgery whenever you have it. Hopefully it's sooner rather than later. 49er faithful, don't believe all the stories that are going to come out this off season. Just enjoy the ride. Ted, I agree with you. I think Kyle's going to go all in this season, and go Niners. Go ahead, Maddie.
Next Wednesday is the first day of March. This is not a 29-day February, so that begins early March, right? So however this Brock Purdy thing goes, early March could be next week. So let's hope that maybe next week the swelling's down and that process can start, right? So we can get over that anxiety hurdle and move forward, right? So, and everything can work out smoothly with that. Because I think once that has settled a little bit, I think there's good karmic energy in the air moving forward, right? So let's hope for that.
Save, trust the Shanna plan.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, trust the Shanna plan. Ted, thank you so much for coming on the show. We really appreciate it. Thank you to everybody who joined us in the chat. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you're seeing the replay. And that's about it. Go Niners. And we'll see you back here next week.
Go
Bang, bang.
Thanks, Ness.
And of course, for the upstart 49ers, they're 6 yards away from Pontiac. 3rd and 3.
We'll see a pickup sometime on the right side, possibly.
Montana